You've probably heard a lot about the Emoluments Clause, usually when a president's doing something that smells a little foreign. But this part of the Constitution isn't just some technicality. It's one of the oldest, clearest rules about how U.S. presidents are supposed to behave and what they're not allowed to take. So how do we get from no gifts from kings to foreign governments funding private jets and presidential libraries? Let's break it down. The Constitution has two emolument clauses. We're just going to focus on the foreign emoluments, which states no person holding any office shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present from any king, prince, or foreign state. And it exists because the founders were allergic to bribes. They didn't want America's leaders collecting diamonds from kings, pensions from popes, or fancy horses from sultans. They feared divided loyalty. No gifts, no honors, no strings. In short, the emoluments clauses exist so presidents work for us, not a foreign monarch, not their own business, not their own brand. And don't get me wrong, presidents have been handed a lot over the years. Most of it ends up in a vault somewhere. Some of it, after a congressional vote, can become legal, but rarely, if ever, does a president just get to keep their shiny stuff. Thomas Jefferson got a lion and tiger cubs from foreign leaders, probably said, "Oh cool," and sent them away. Martin Van Buren received a pair of Arabian horses from a sultan. Congress voted to refuse the gift, so he had to sell them at public auction and deposit the proceeds into the treasury. This was the first major test of the Emoluments Clause, and Congress did what they were supposed to do. Barack Obama received hundreds of gifts during his presidency. All of these were turned over to the National Archives, or the GSA. They are stored in government custody, not his personal library or possession. And finally, going back in history, we've got to bring up the Statue of Liberty, because technically it was a gift from France to the United States in 1886, but it wasn't a gift to any individual president. It was a diplomatic gesture to the entire nation, received and managed as public property from day one. It's often cited as the precedent for acceptable gifts, but proves the rule. The gift went to the people, not the president. Bottom line, if you're president, the only gift you can keep is your pension, unless Congress explicitly says otherwise, and that really doesn't happen. Enter the back door. Presidential libraries. And here's how those work. Every modern president sets up a private, non-profit foundation after leaving office. That foundation raises money, often from corporations and from foreign donors, to fund a library, museum, or policy center. Only after the building is complete and approved does the National Archives, or NARA, step in to take over management of the records and archive functions, not the building operations, allocation of funds, or the narrative. So the library itself, still owned and controlled by the foundation, and that means the president's people control who gets hired, which speeches get booked, and for how much money, and generally how money flows. So if you're asking if the president directly benefits from these libraries, not directly with a paycheck, but in soft power. They book speaking events through the foundation, and they keep their names in the lights. The building may look federal, but in most ways, for the early decades after the presidency, it's private turf. Foreign money gets laundered into legacy, and no one's really checking the receipts. Everyone does it, including Obama, just usually after they leave office. And that brings us to the jet. So Trump didn't want to find a loophole. He built one with wings. The jet isn't going to the Trump Foundation because the original one was shut down in 2018. It's going to a new nonprofit that will supposedly build his presidential library. But that nonprofit doesn't even have a building or clear structure at this time. Some defenders claim it's technically going to the Department of Defense first, but the stated plan is to hand it off to Trump's privately run foundation. And that legal defense was put out by Pam Bondi, former Florida AG and longtime Trump ally. She was senior advisor at a lobbying firm that represented Qatar in 2018. So the person recommending the jet had not long ago been paid by the people gifting it. As far as the claims that he'll use it, I want to be clear, the president said no in a press conference. He said it would be decommissioned. And decommissioned just means removed from official use, possibly stripped of government transponders and refueling credentials, but a decommissioned plane can fly again if retrofitted with new avionics, registered properly, and brought up to FAA and Secret Service standard specs. As far as the benefit goes to the American people, even if Trump could use it during his term, it would cost millions of dollars, and the timeline to have it ready is 18 to 24 months minimum, even on a rush order. Trump cannot fly commercial due to security restrictions. So if the jet is retrofitted, functional, and technically owned by a nonprofit that he controls, it could quietly become his post-presidential ride. If it looks like a gift, flies like a gift, and is recommended by someone paid by the donor, it's probably a gift. So you may be asking, who enforces the Emoluments Clause? Technically, Congress, but yeah, who knows what they'll do or if they'll do anything. So if this goes through as written and stated, the Constitution didn't fail. The people who are supposed to enforce it did. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of The Review. This was a fun one to write. If you want to encourage me to make more of these, please like, comment, share, or subscribe. Later.